Hi, my name is Elizabeth Brushuk, and this is my response video for task number 4, explaining and modeling lower elementary math. This one I thought was very interesting and very fun to do a representation for both Mackenzie and Alex. So explaining Mackenzie's thinking, she says that each student will get one whole brownie and no more because there are not enough leftovers for everyone to get a whole second brownie. Here's Mackenzie's thinking that since there are 6 brownies and 4 students, she will give one whole brownie to each student, which uses 4 of the brownies, 4 of the 6 brownies, and then there are 2 left over. And her thinking is you cannot give each student one more whole, so she concludes sharing the spot at 1 each. Whereas then we look at Alex's thinking, and he argues that all students can get 1.5 brownies, because since he recognizes that there are 2 leftover brownies, he can put them into halves, and each student can receive one of those halves. So for Alex, first he gives each student one whole brownie, just like Mackenzie. Then he takes the 2 leftover brownies and cuts them in half. And I can show my representation. So just kind of writing out what I just said. Mackenzie's thinking there's 6 brownies and 4 students. So everyone will get one whole brownie and there's 2 left over. And this just says S student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4, and then there's 2 brownies left over. Whereas now we look at Alex's thinking, and there's 6 brownies, 4 students, and everyone will get 1.5. So the representation of there's still student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4, and then these are the 2 leftover brownies. If you cut them in half, since there's 4 halves, 4 students can get those halves. And that was Alex's thinking. And he had a great understanding of sharing it and cutting it in half and seeing it visually in his mind, that since the 2 brownies would make 4 halves, each student would get another half of the brownie. And I do think that this is expected for the standard for 2.G.3. Something that I would respond to Alex with, and maybe possible next steps, is I would say, Alex, I can see that you are thinking of how to partition the leftover brownies so everyone gets an equal amount. Cutting the leftovers in half is a great way to share your thinking, and so everything stays fair. Your idea that each student can get 1.5 brownies makes sense because you created 4 equal halves. Next steps for Alex would include deepening the fraction reasoning. So I would include using different shapes like circles, rectangles, to partition wholes into halves, thirds, or even fourths. Comparing unit fractions, 1/2 versus 1/4. Asking him to justify whether shares remain fair when partitioned differently. And it also shows that equal shares do not need to look the same, but they just represent the same amount. And in this case, it would be showing the equal amounts of brownies. For Mackenzie, it would be a little bit different, but the feedback I would build on that she already knows, and then maybe nudge her towards more of like Alex is thinking of doing halves and like partitioning them into different ways. So I would say, Mackenzie, you correctly figured out that each person gets one brownie. You also notice that you don't have enough leftovers to give everyone another whole brownie. Now let's think, what can we do with those leftovers? What could we do with the extra brownies so that everyone can still get the same amount or even more brownies? And I feel like this would shift her reasoning to about equal shares, not just whole groups. And the next steps for Mackenzie would include modeling cutting brownies or shapes into halves and fourths. I would also use manipulatives or digital tools like I just showed in my representation. I would show there were 6 brownies and 4 students, and so then I would show her a different type of representation, and I used squares in those, but you could use circles, you could use triangles, you can do any of that to show for this example using a digital tool like that. And I would ask her a question like, if we cut the leftover brownies into equal parts, how many more parts would each person get? and how many pieces would be fair for everyone to get with the leftovers. And I feel like the goal would have her understand partitioning and involving the halves and cutting them in so that more students can have more brownies. And this concludes my task 4. Just an overview. I drew and explained both students' thinking about the sharing task, provided instructional feedback for both of the students, and gave them follow-up steps for what I would do in this situation, and described how it aligns with the standard 2.G.3. Thank you.